Yeah, Ellie, we all remember that video from last week when we saw Mangione being led out of that police cruiser or SUV, and he was shouting at the cameras, looking pretty, out of his mind.
Out of his mind. He was out of his mind for saying the phrase, quote, "It's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience." Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Corporate media elites are melting down at society's support and adoration for Luigi Mangione, the alleged shooter of Brian Thompson, UnitedHealthcare CEO. And it got so bad that CNN equated Thompson with George Floyd and John Lennon. But first, we just hit 300,000 subscribers. So thank you to our original subscribers and all new subscribers. And if you're new here, please subscribe and consider supporting our independent reporting for as low as $5 a month. You could do that at statuscoup.com/join. Okay. I have a few clips for you and additional reporting that I hope you're not on an empty stomach. Over the weekend, Michael Smerconish, a CNN anchor with the, crumbs net worth of $2 million, wanted to give you a real-time experience of him passing the site where UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson was murdered, and how he is just so shocked and aghast that he didn't see flowers there for Thompson. Buckle up.
It was Wednesday in the 6 a.m. hour. I slowed my gait as I passed a side entrance to the Hilton Hotel, realizing that this was the same day, in the same early morning hour, in the precise location where 1 week prior, a 50-year-old father of two was assassinated. But something was missing. Any sign whatsoever of the tragedy that occurred right here and which has captivated the nation. We've all seen the crime scene that's been shown many times in the media. There it is. But a week later, here's what was left. A lone piece of NYPD crime tape affixed to a barrier. No memorial of the kind that often appears spontaneously after a similar tragedy, like when John Lennon was murdered in New York City in 1980, or when 32-year-old Heather Heyer was run down in Charlottesville, Virginia, George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, the spot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber were shot and killed by Kyle Rittenhouse. Crowds grieve the loss of Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer who was fatally shot on the set of the film Rust. The University of Georgia held a vigil for Laken Riley, a nursing student who was killed by a migrant near campus. And when Donald Trump returned to the site of his first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, supporters appropriately honored Corey Comparatore's life and service by placing his firefighter's uniform in the stands. But there was no sign of any makeshift memorial on 54th Street. Instead, a poster was taped outside the Hilton Hotel depicting the suspect as a saint with the words, "Free Luigi," a reference to the 26-year-old charged with second-degree murder. And there have also been sightings of wanted posters targeting other corporate executives in Midtown Manhattan, which I find rather despicable.
John Lennon? George Floyd? Heather Heyer? I don't know if this man, as you can see on the screen, net worth of $2 million, which is kind of poor for CNN. I don't know if he realized this, that he just equated the murder of George Floyd, who was basically lynched on camera by a murderous cop for whatever it was, over 8 minutes, or Heather Heyer, a young woman who was run over by a white supremacist neo-Nazi, or John Lennon, a rock star from the Beatles who was killed by a crazy person, to a guy worth over $10 million was his salary, Brian Thompson. I know the media wants you to know that he came from the blue collar background, who was literally overseeing a for-profit predatory healthcare company who is now leveraging AI to further deny claims and kill people. You just equated the murder of George Floyd, Heather Heyer, with a for-profit vulture and are crying tears because there's not a garden of bouquets to memorialize that guy. Again, you don't have to condone outright murder. I have been clear. I'm not telling people go get your guns and, gun down CEOs, because that could certainly backfire on the proletariat and the working class. This is not about glorifying it. But the fact that this guy is literally, without irony, equating Brian Thompson as a hero or a victim on par with George Floyd, Heather Heyer, the people that Kyle Rittenhouse gunned down when he was playing Rambo, crossing state lines with his guns to protect the people, is sickening. But it's not just this hack from CNN. Another higher, wealthier hack from CNN. He had something to say just this morning when they're discussing, Luigi Mangione potentially, defending himself on the basis of mental insanity. Let's take a listen to what Jim Acosta and his guests had to say.
Last week, I was basically saying the same thing, echoing the fact that you've got a valedictorian, poised, joyful, at his address, known and loved by so many, good family. And then about 6 months or more ago, he goes off the grid. His mother files a missing persons report. People say that he's changed significantly, he had these health issues and so forth.
Right.
His appearance is substantially different. There has been a deterioration in him that likely is mental in nature. And I do believe that the only play, because of the overwhelming forensic evidence, will be a mental defense of not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah, Ellie, we all remember that video from last week when we saw Mangione being let out of that police cruiser or SUV, and he was shouting at the cameras, looking pretty, out of his mind. What are your thoughts as a former prosecutor? How do you deal with this? What seems like a very strong likelihood that an insanity defense is going to be mounted here.
Out of his mind. He was out of his mind for saying the phrase, quote, "It's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience," and their lived experience. I don't know. You be the judge. Here's the video.
It's completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Seems pretty lucid to me. Seems to know exactly what he's saying. Sure, he's angry and shouting, but seems to be totally knowledgeable and within his faculties. Some of you might say, Jordan, don't say that because, if he defends himself with a mental insanity defense, you don't want to say he actually was within his mind. I'm going to tell you the truth. It pretty much seems he was within his right mind and had all his faculties. This is not someone who didn't know what he was doing or lost his mind. Clearly, he was calm walking out of that car and was speaking coherently with emotion and passion, but was speaking coherently. But that's out of their mind. Out of your mind, you must be, to take the action, go to the extreme, to shoot a for-profit, predatory, murderous CEO like Brian Thompson. Well, of course, Jim Acosta, he's completely within his right mind with the cool salary of $700,000 a year and the net worth of $4 million. So, of course, he's the person we should be listening to about, who is lucid and who is sane versus who is insane. And, this is par for the course with people like him because he wanted to lecture you last week, scolded you. This man had a family. Remember that? Here we go.
Should go without saying that a murder like this is just unbelievably tragic, and he has a family, and it's completely uncalled for, full stop. What do you make of the reaction that we've been seeing on social media? It seems to underline this toxicity that exists in our culture.
Yes, humanity versus inhumanity. That's the dividing line here.
He had a family. Yeah, I'm human. I feel for his kids. But, you know, what's interesting, a lot of other people had family members who died because of people like Brian Thompson. I don't recall Jim Acosta doing segments on those people. If you missed it, over the weekend, I interviewed a whistleblower, a former employee with UnitedHealthcare, who shared her experience, including the fact that she revealed UnitedHealthcare had a quota system, an employee quota system for how many patients, customers as they call it, they had to deny. Let's take a listen.
I would hear people, you know, on break time or whatever, when we would all kind of come together in this kitchen clutch, and people would be talking about what they were told to do their job. It wasn't my job, so I can't say 100%. Yes, we have to deny so many claims per month to meet our shareholders' expectations, but I do know that people were complaining because, you know, they had to meet a certain amount of claim denials.
So people were telling you that there was a quota for how many denials?
Yep.
Which is kind of like less deadly, but, you know, cops towards the end of the month, you have a quota, how many tickets you have to give out.
Right.
You remember Jim Acosta with his nearly $1 million salary and a net worth of $4 million doing segments on those patients who might have died, probably did die, many of them, because they were just the unlucky victims of UnitedHealthcare's quota system for how many customers, i.e. patients, that employees had to deny their claims that should have been approved. Do you remember Jim Acosta doing segments? Those people had families. I don't. And check out that video. We'll put it in the link. A great whistleblower who we interviewed. And by the way, if you are a current UnitedHealthcare employee, if you are a current for-profit healthcare employee in other industries, I want to interview you, and we will protect your identity. We can blur your face. We could distort your voice to protect your identity, so your employer would not be able to see you or identify you by voice. So if you are interested, please reach out to us. info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com. We will protect your identity. But, you know, it's truly amazing that these are the people scolding and lecturing you, the American people, about morality and dignity, when they are literally the gatekeepers who work hand in hand, are accomplices with the for-profit healthcare industry to normalize a system of for-profit murder. Let me repeat, a system of for-profit murder. That's what this is, plain and simple. I want to play another clip. This was from last week. Same guy, Jim Acosta, net worth $4 million. Take a listen to what his advice for you, the American people, are.
But at the same time, there is a way for young people out there who are going online and talking about the suspect's appearance and so on. They can do something with their time other than going on these social media sites and posting these kinds of comments. They can go organize. They can do the things that can be done to get legislation passed in this country. It might be a lot harder than posting your hot take on social media, but my goodness, that is how you get real change in this country. Not doing what Mangione did, and certainly not putting him up on a pedestal.
Folks, young kids who are doing hashtag Luigi, just get out there and organize, you know. Go knock on doors. Go protest for universal health care, Medicare for all. Go volunteer for candidates like Bernie Sanders, fighting the good fight for Medicare for all. Hey, maybe you'll even get it past Congress. But oh, wait. Wasn't there a president who said, even if the kids, even if the old folks, even if the American people organized, even if they even got Congress to pass Medicare for all, he would kill it? I vaguely remember some president saying that.
Let's flash forward. Your president, Bernie Sanders, is still active in the Senate. He manages to get Medicare for all through the Senate in some compromised version, the Elizabeth Warren version or other version. Nancy Pelosi gets a version of it through the House of Representatives. It comes to your desk. Do you veto it?
I would veto anything that delays providing the security and the certainty of health care being available now. If they got that through and by some miracle, and there was an epiphany that occurred, and some miracle occurred that said, okay, it's passed, then you got to look at the cost. I want to know, how did they find the $35 trillion? What is that doing? Is it going to significantly raise taxes on the middle class, which it will? What's going to happen? Look, my opposition isn't to the principle that you should have Medicare. I mean, everybody, health care should be a right in America. My opposition relates to whether or not, A, it's doable, two, what the cost is, and what the consequences for the rest of the budget are. How are you going to find $35 trillion over the next 10 years without having profound impacts on everything from taxes for middle class and working class people, as well as the impact on the rest of the budget?
I guess Jim Acosta forgot that tiny detail, that the current president literally said he would kill it, even if the folks organized to the point of getting it passed. By the way, Biden, how are you going to find the money for it? Same way you find the money to send money to Ukraine, Israel, and every other country with the snap of your fingers. The United States government prints money. We have all the money in the world for universal health care, free education, and all the rest. It's absurd. Absurd. You think our taxes funded at this point, who knows, 10 to $20 trillion we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 years? You think taxes covered that? No. That was printing money. Anyway, I digress. It's just obscene. The out of touchness, disconnect from these elitist, wealthy people masquerading as journalists on CNN and elsewhere. But it's par for the course. And you might say, well, Jordan, why are you highlighting them? They're losing influence. Yes, they're losing influence in terms of ratings, but they're not losing influence in terms of maintaining the status quo. They're not losing influence in terms of maintaining the system in place. And what I mean by that, and this is important to realize, and I don't want people to get offended because we do have older viewers, but I've been on the ground for nearly 10 years. And the bottom line is, for better or worse, the most reliable voter, and I say this over and over, so I'm sorry if I'm a broken record, the most reliable voter happens to be older people. Definitely in midterm elections, not presidential, but the midterms, definitely in local elections, and definitely in presidential elections. We're talking 55 and over, and definitely 65 and older. And that is the predominant viewer of CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, CNBC. That is the predominant audience for Reader, the New York Times, the Washington Post, a lot of these legacy outlets. So the most reliable voter, the most consistent voters that are giving you Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. Well, they didn't give us Kamala Harris. That was forced on us. But the establishment corporate Democrats on the other side giving you the same, the Mitch McConnells, the Paul Ryans, the fill in the rest Republicans are older voters. A lot of Trump's most reliable voters are older people too. This is not to attack older people, because there's plenty of older people, including in our audience, that are with it and working class and progressive and know this is propaganda. But there's a lot of older people, including those I know and love in my life that I argue with, that this is their steady diet. MSNBC or CNN or my father and mother, God bless them, Fox News. This is what they're getting. And they are making their voting decisions based on this propaganda. So it is important that we try to reach them. Many of them watch these videos and are also online. We have to reach the most consistent voter while also organizing to get younger people to vote, to get the biggest group of voters, the non-voters, 100 million people to vote these bums out. And as I've been saying, not put all your apples in one basket in terms of electoral politics. I think we need to equally split our focus and attention and activity outside of the electoral system. Labor, organizing economic protests. Amazon workers are going on strike this weekend in Staten Island, which was the first unionized Amazon to win the union. We covered that from the beginning before they won. For you OG Status Coup viewers, we were out there in the cold, in the burning hot for a year covering their union campaign. Well, now they're going on strike right outside of that massive Staten Island warehouse right before Christmas to hurt Amazon where it hurts. That's a big, big deal. We'll be covering it, by the way, on the ground this weekend. So reminder, if you can, please support Status Coup for as low as $5 a month to support on-the-ground journalism. We're one of the only independent outlets that actually leaves the studio. Folks, we're going to continue covering this, and the people seem to want us to continue covering it. And the people, whether you agree with it morally or not, the people, a lot of them, I would say the majority at this point, are supporting Luigi Mangione. This recent fundraiser for health CEO murder suspect takes in more than $120,000. So he has raised more than $120,000 from crowdfunding, and that number is going to go up. And as CNN call him crazy and out of his mind and compare Brian Thompson to John Lennon and George Floyd, that gaslighting is only going to give him more support.